as soon as we admit our crowd, I'm going to roll our little show.
All right, it's 3. So you want me to admit?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to everyone who's joining us from near and far. I am Patty Zimmerman, and with Tom Chevery, we are the co-directors of the Finger Lakes Environmental Film Festival. Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to the opening event of the 24th edition of the Finger Lakes Environmental Film Festival. This year, no doubt, is a historic year. COVID, protests, masks, vaccines, remote learning, the Zoomiverse, the yearning for connections around ideas and community and politics. We shuttered the Embodied Festival last year and ran 3 online exhibitions, one of which was curated by Dale Hudson and Claudia Pedersen. This year, for the very first time in 24 years, we are 100% virtual. We have 2 FLEFF mottos this year: FLEFF, a different environment, and we are the screen. Both were developed and created by our festival producers, Anne Michelle and Phil Wild. I would like to give special recognition to Dr. Tanya Saunders, who helmed FLEFF as executive producer and associate provost of Ithaca College for 20 years. Even in retirement, she is still an ardent FLEFFista and supporter. We are delighted and honored that all of you from everywhere can join us today for our official launch of this year's FLEFF and the even bigger launch into the world of the remarkable Entangled Infiltrations exhibition. I am pleased to introduce the curators of Entangled Infiltrations, both of whom have been a part of our festival team for 15 years, Dale Hudson and Claudia Pedersen. Dale is Associate Teaching Professor of Film and New Media and Curator of Film and New Media at New York University, Abu Dhabi. He is the author of Vampires, Race, and Transnational Hollywoods, and Thinking Through Digital Media, Transnational Environments, and Locative Places. Claudia Pedersen is Associate Professor of Art History at Wichita State University. She is the author of the just published last week, Gaming Utopia, Ludic Worlds in Art, Design, and Media. Dale and Claudia.
Hello, thank you. What we're going to do is I'm going to start off and give a little brief introduction to the exhibition, and then Claudia's going to introduce each of the artists, and they're going to give a presentation about their work in the exhibition. And then afterwards, we're going to open it up for questions. So I'm going to share with you my screen. For a very, very brief. This is our first slide. So how this exhibition began, I thought this is an interesting kind of way to introduce the exhibit, is last year we did the exhibit Radical Infiltrations. So remember last year when we were programming and doing the call for the artist and writing everything was well before November 2019. So that was before people really knew about the pandemic that was coming. So at this point, we were trying to look at this exploration of potentially radical infiltrations to counter neoliberalism and ethno-nationalist forces, okay, which were the dominant forces at the time. And we wanted contributions that would broaden perspectives and promote dialogue within this politically and economically polarized climate. And what we wanted to do, and we did do through the projects that are in the exhibit, and you can see the images, little screen grabs of them at the bottom, was to show that the global climate crisis was not just ecological, but also cultural. And we kind of are emphasizing that point last year, as well as the with the enhanced and accelerated surveillance of and monetization of our natural built and virtual environments. Then last year, as we all know, about this time, I think it hit, the pandemic arrived. And I chose this image, which is from a film called 76 Days, which actually looks at what goes on the ground. And that showed the infiltration of the virus into our world, at this stage, disinfecting everything. And I think this would be January 2020, so the very beginning of the pandemic. So anyway, this year for the exhibit, we decided to, since FLEFF was continuing the infiltrations theme, to think about entangled infiltrations. So the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus, as we call it, infiltrated global economic, political, and cultural systems to become a pandemic. Human self-interest infiltrated media and also social interactions to become an infodemic of misinformation and disinformation. And we thought these were really interesting threads to look at to see how they entwined. So as we've found in these projects, there's different ways into this question of thinking about infection and death rates surging, where populist movements and market economics thrive, where states do not have the trust of their citizens, and also where the pandemic and the infodemic entangle. So that's the introduction to the exhibit. I'm going to turn it over now to Claudia to introduce the artist. Sorry, I'm not teaching this semester, so I'm not good on my share, not share.
You're good. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us, and special thanks to, Patty and Tom as always, and the FLEFF team, and of course the artists. The projects that we're going to be talking about, actually there's just 3 of them. There are a few more on the website of the exhibition, so please do go on the exhibition to look at them. So I want to open up with one of the projects that is actually a collaboration between several artists, one in Mexico, Leslie Garcia, Adriana Knauf, who is currently in Amsterdam, and then there are also a few other artists involved in this project called Traveling Time Aerosol Wormholes. I think somebody was from Slovenia, another artist from Poland, and another one from Belgium. So I'm gonna introduce Leslie Garcia, and she will talk a little bit about the project and her contribution to it, and then Adriana after that. So Leslie Garcia is actually not a stranger to the FLEFF Festival. She actually came to the FLEFF Festival way back then. I couldn't really remember when it was, but I thought it was 2009 or thereabouts. And she's back. So this is what happens with FLEFF. So Leslie Garcia is an electronic sound artist and digital media developer from Tijuana, Mexico. She explores the fusion process between art and technology, using techniques such as virtual tool production, electronic prototyping, audio production, net art part design, and generative visual codes, and hardware development and biological interfaces. She's the co-founder of the BioArt collective Interspecifics, co-founded in Mexico City in 2013, and still ongoing, of the electronic media collective Dream Addictive from way back 2003 until 2010. They were based in Tijuana. And she's a member of the Astrovandalistas in Mexico City, also co-founded in 2011 and still ongoing. She was the associate researcher at the Nano Laboratory Nucleus of the School of Fine Arts, UFRH in Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil from 2012 until 2015. Then during 2015 and until 2016, she worked as an artistic researcher in the Media Environments Department of the Bauhaus University in Weimar in Germany. And she's currently the coordinator of Music Makers Hack Lab, #CDMX. And during 2019, she was also coordinator of the education department of the Center for Digital Culture in Mexico City, a wonderful institution. Her electronic music appears under several names, one of which is Microhome, Logard, Decay, and Latin Tapes. And I am gonna put this information on the chat, but please take over, Leslie. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And thank you for FLEFF for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here. Well, I have to talk a little bit about this amazing initiative by the Biofriction organization. We were part of this experiment that took part during the 2020. So they put together several groups to work in different subjects. And I also now decide to tackle the subject of time traveling and all the complicated related themes in this area. And it was just a wonderful experience for me to have this amazing group of women working together from all different parts. And, you know, it was just not just making art, it was also therapy for us to be in this group and to have the possibility of work together, talk about all the process that are being taken during this time because of the virus, the changes in the world. And we tried to put this into several little pieces. One of these is the Shimmer Traveler, which is a very interesting digital literature piece that also ended up as a video art / sound art exercise. So this is something is going to be shown on this exhibition. I think it was a very interesting piece of art because we put together all these different elements from 3D to machine learning, quantum computing, something that Adriana was making during this time. And we tried to put all these elements in one kind of container that is this video piece. And it's part of different aesthetics. It's not something that you can say is from a specific time. I think that's the time traveling part of this piece, that you can go back to the 80s and way into the future with the aesthetic of this piece. So we're also working on a publication, and I think I'm gonna let Adriana to talk more about the details of the publication. But yes, this is something that we worked last year, and I'm quite proud of being part of this amazing collective. And I hope that these collaborations keep going during the time before this strange lapsus on human history.
All right, thank you, Leslie. So I'm gonna introduce Adriana, who worked with one of the collaborators in the project with Leslie. Adriana Knauf works as a xenologist and as an artist, scientist, writer, designer, and engineer. She engages with topics such as space art, satellites, radio transmission, unknown human encounters, drone flight, queer and trans futurities, machine learning, the voice, and papermaking. She's the founding facilitator of the Transxeno Lab, which is a nomadic artistic research laboratory that promotes entanglements amongst entities, trans, and xeno. Adrian is currently in residency at the VAR in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Go ahead.
All right. So thank you, Claudia, for that introduction. And thank you, Claudia and Dale, for selecting this piece for the exhibition. And of course, thank you to Tom and Patty, as always, for the amazing things that you do for FLEFF. I'm one of those people who have been involved in FLEFF for longer than maybe I want to say. Given...
Yes, I forgot to say that.
Yeah, so I think 2008 was maybe my first FLEFF, or 2009. So yeah, it's been a long-standing relationship, which I'm very glad to be able to participate in again this year. So yes, I will share my screen here and then just show you a little bit of some of what we were doing with this project that Leslie was giving you some more information about. So myself, Leslie Špela Petric, who's a Slovenian artist based in Amsterdam, Ingrid Vranken, who's a Belgian artist based in Brussels, and Agnieszka Volajko, who's a Polish artist based in the Netherlands. And so as part of this Braiding Friction project, which is really sort of a way to have artists come together during the lockdown, figure out new ways of working together. This is sort of the overarching goal of this project, of this initiative. But as Leslie was talking about, it was a lot more than this. So we sort of produced this work over the course of a few months through Sunday afternoon, evening sessions that involved lots of philosophical discussion, emotional exploration, glitter makeup tutorials, and so forth. Sort of a real combination and possibilities that made the first lockdown bearable, and creating different types of relationships with each other, cross-continent relationships too, because at that time I was based in the US. And so for the piece that was selected for this exhibition, it was sort of our final presentation, which involved us also wanting to play with the realm and the medium and the space of online encounters. So we played a lot with color and overlaying a video, and all of this was done live. So the video that that is part of the exhibition is a live recording of this event. And so we were really wanting to make connections between sort of old and new understandings of the virus and virality and plagues and demons, and how do we sort of understand this within regimes of techno-capitalism and racism and all sorts of other sorts of things, and sort of create new modes of dealing with these overlapping times, because that was one of the main directions for this, was to explore time and how do we understand these complicated relationships of overlapping times. And so for part of my contribution to this, I was really sort of interested in different things having to do with quantum mechanics and this thing called loop quantum gravity, which is sort of a way to try and understand gravitational force on a quantum level. And so it's a sort of new philosophical development, and at the basis of loop quantum gravity is the notion that actually time does not exist, that it is basically something that just comes out of little parts of space-time coming in and out all the time. And so, this is sort of a very interesting concept to sort of take in when we were in a situation of time sort of becoming very strange, standing still, maybe existing, overlapping with past ideas of plagues and viruses and so forth. And so coupled to this was a desire on my side as well to connect this to histories of queerness. and earlier plagues such as AIDS, right? And so I was really influenced by the work of the glitter poet C.A. Conrad, and so we were reading. I was reading some of his their poems with a group, and then exploring this through different forms of video, and as Leslie was also saying, things having to do with quantum computing, and trying to see if there's ways to use sort of the quantum realm to give us a different access to time and space and so forth. And so I'm just sort of going through here a little bit quickly some of the things that were created from this, different sorts of representations of quantum queerness, as I guess I was calling it. And I don't have time to really go into this right now, but I'm of course willing to talk about it more in questions if you're interested. And as Lizzie was also saying, we also have a publication that is in development and we're just finalizing right now. So we're going to be taking all of the images, the text that we wrote, because there was a ton of this that we produced over the few months of this project, and we're going to be printing them on A5 sized cards that will then sort of create a physical manifestation of all that we explored and developed. These few minutes here that I have to tell you, and Leslie has to talk to you, is not enough to cover everything that we explored during these few months of research. But these cards will allow people to sort of get another avenue into this. So I think I will stop there. And thank you for everyone who is going to be looking at this project. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Fun images. Okay, so the next project is called The Beauty Spot by Stephanie Rothenberg. I think Stephanie is also one of our, FLEFF family, right, Stephanie? Stephanie Rothenberg, interdisciplinary arts, draws from digital culture, science, and economics to explore relationships between human design systems and biological ecosystems. She has exhibited internationally. Her work is in the collections of the Whitney Museum of American Art and has been widely reviewed, including Art Forum, ArtNet, the Brooklyn Rail, and Hyperallergic. She is Associate Professor and Director of Graduate Studies in the Department of Art at SUNY Buffalo, where she co-directs the Platform Social Design Lab, which is an interdisciplinary design studio collaborating with local social justice organizations. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Claudia. And I guess I am one of the old timers, because when I was there in 2008, I met you and Dale, and I think Adriana and Patty, and stayed in touch. So it's definitely very exciting to be back virtually. I like to call it, in our little ice cube trays. Here we are. So let me share my screen as well here. And is that good?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
okay,
you're
great.
fine.
Yes. So thank you so much for including, selecting this work in the exhibition. And I really love the title of it. So this piece, The Beauty Spot, is kind of a short, fun project that I did based on a call for videos that was organized by FemMeeting, which is a consortium of women identified group of people in art, science, and technology. And there was supposed to be a conference in last year in March, April. And of course it got canceled and everybody was really upset about it. And we were all, dealing with the initial shock of the pandemic. and started to have some online forums and discussions. And it was decided to do an exhibition of short 3-minute videos on how we were feeling. And what was interesting for me was, I had a few weeks to do this, and every day I had a different idea depending on how I was feeling. Sometimes it was a more personal thing, what I was eating, how I was exercising, or something like that. And then I just decided, I don't know why I decided, but I think like all of us really became obsessed with the spiky blob, right? And the phenomena of the spiky blob. And I started to read more about it, and there were tons of news articles about the spiky red blob. And it turns out it was designed by a medical illustrator at the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, along with a designer, Dan Higgins, and they were known for doing gonorrhea viruses and Zika viruses. And it was really fascinating to read about how this thing that was invisible was given this this graphic form to become this iconic, this icon that is familiar all around the world. And it started to bring up all of the issues in science technology studies around, the visualizations and the conflation of fact and fiction. And if you start to read more about it, here you can see this, and this is also shown in the video, which is just a series of quick images, the branding, right? That what you have is this invisible thing, but then it's given this whole personality that's basically subjective. And for me, it brought up these questions about, like, how does visualization reflect our cultural fears and anxiety towards these invisible infectious diseases? And then how are they then turned around? And how is the cultural factor influencing these scientists and graphic designers? So,
Stephanie, just quickly,
yeah.
I think you need to go on the slide presentation. I think now you're on, yes,
Can you
got
see
it,
it now?
sorry. Yeah,
Did you see
you're
this
good.
one? Did you see my news articles?
Yes, but they
Okay.
were on presenter mode, so
Oh,
you're
okay.
fine. You're
All
good
right,
now.
thanks. All right, so here you can see, this was some of the branding that was created, color palettes. And, here we have on the right, what actually the coronavirus looks like. And then on the left, how it was designed. And the title, The Beauty Spot, was when Alyssa Eckert, the designer, was asked to create, something that could grab the public's attention. And they basically manufactured, right, this detailed solo close-up, right, this beauty shot, which I called the beauty spot. And so the video is just a collection of these images that range from, this is, here you see the coronavirus, but it looks like some kind of amazing, sci-fi animation that you would want to be part of. Or also it could look like even some kind of strange acne commercial. We're all familiar, right, with the Corona beer, the way that it plays out in stock footage, which I don't even know which came first, if this was just some stock footage and it just happens to look like the virus. This was a crossword puzzle where you see it. And not all of these are in the video, I kind of threw more in. Here we see a lot of the problematics coming with the Chinese flag. Doesn't want to go. Let's see. Here, a rendering in parametric architectural drawings. And then you just start to see things, right? Here's a Capiz lantern that starts to look like the coronavirus ball. This is a very expensive necklace from Cartier. Here was this Kylie Minogue and this bouquet of flowers looking like the coronavirus ball, and getting crafty with these different things. So basically the video is just really a reflection on these things that I talked about. And I closed the video asking that in this time of uncertainty and incredible public anxiety, what does it mean to put a face to the unknowable? And what does it mean to model nature on culture? And in the creation of this beauty spot, does nature become artificial as culture becomes natural? So I will just leave it there. And once again, thank you for including the video in the exhibition.
Thank you, Stephanie. You were missing the piñata, right? There were all piñatas all over Mexico, right, Leslie? I can't wait to collect one. Yeah.
I'll look that up and I'll
I'll send you a picture, Stephanie.
send me the piñata. Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you so much. So the next project and the last one is called Going Viral, and it's by Jennifer Grodesky and Derek Grodesky, a collaboration between them. And I think they're gonna speak together, so I'm just gonna read both bios. Jennifer Grodesky is an artist theorist who investigates secretive and specialized socio-technical systems, including technologies of mass surveillance, intelligence analysis, artificial intelligence, and social media misinformation. Derek Curry is an artist researcher who addresses spaces for intervention in automated decision-making systems, including automated stock trading systems, open source intelligence gathering, and algorithmic classification systems. Both Derek and Jennifer Grodesky are assistant professors at the College of Art, Media, and Design of Northeastern University in Boston. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
We're going to share our screen. Maybe optimize, yeah. You'll have to let us know if it's visible in the way that we want it to be. We are also a part of the FLEFF family.
You are. Sorry about that. I failed to mention that.
Well, I'm trying to remember, sorry, I'm bringing up the video. I hate just like talking to myself. So I need to have like, I just need to be able to see people, sorry. I always do this with my students. I wish the interface on Zoom was much more streamlined. I know we were in the exhibition in like 2017, but I think we may have also been when we were at SUNY Buffalo, which is where we met Stephanie and where Derek met Adriana. So there's a lot of amazing connections here, which is really exciting. So thanks for inviting us not only to be part of the exhibition, but also the roundtable, which we're really excited to hear about the other projects, talk about them, and get feedback. Our project, Going Viral, invites people to share informational videos about coronavirus that feature algorithmically generated celebrities, influencers, politicians who have previously spread misinformation about the coronavirus. In the videos, the influencers deliver public service announcements or present news stories that counter the misinformation they've spread. Viewers are invited to share the videos on social media to intervene in the current infodemic that's developed alongside the coronavirus. Early on in the pandemic, it became clear that conspiracy theories about the virus were spreading rapidly. There were social media influencers and pundits making money on fake cures, like colloidal silver and elderberry chew. Others said that you could prevent the virus by drinking hot water or taking mega doses of vitamins, or even using bleach internally. Celebrities, politicians, and influencers pushed the potentially heart-damaging drug hydroxychloroquine, despite a lack of evidence of its effectiveness. Even more strange were the connections made to new technologies like 5G networks causing or exacerbating the virus that led to cell phone towers being burned down. But maybe the most bizarre of all conspiracies was the notion that Bill Gates created the virus to implant microchips into people to track them, as if their cell phones weren't already doing it. So after watching countless of hours of videos of experts debunking, theorizing, and historicizing about coronavirus conspiracies, we learned that misinformation and disinformation going viral is a result of scientific uncertainty exacerbated by algorithms. In the absence of an official scientific explanation, the public understandably seeks out other explanations wherever they can find them. Social media and content sharing sites like YouTube provide a platform for speculation, unsubstantiated rumors, and conspiracy theories. As people share false stories and claims about the virus, content recommendation algorithms, oh, there's something weird about this slide. Anyway, begin to promote and recommend misinformation to people seeking information. So we realize that this is a complex problem where various fears surrounding the virus are being exacerbated by uncertainty, and misinformation and disinformation are being promoted by algorithms, influencers, and people lacking in media literacies alike.
So to produce the images in the video, we used a conditional generative adversarial network, or a CGAN. CGANs can be used for image-to-image translation. So this could be labels to an image, or black and white to color images, edges to photos, satellite photos to maps, or facial landmarks to frames of a video, which is what we used. For going viral, we trained 20 CGANs on images of different celebrities, influencers, and politicians who had spread misinformation and their corresponding facial landmarks. Once a model was trained, facial landmarks could be given as an input, and it would produce a photorealistic image of the speaker as an output. Next, we found an expert that was countering the misinformation spread by the influencer, like former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who debunked claims that the use of disinfectants and UV light that President Trump had famously made in a press conference. Then we extracted the facial landmarks from each frame of the video of Dr. Gottlieb. And we used those facial landmarks to generate frames for a video of President Trump speaking the same words. When the input is the facial landmarks from the same video the model is trained on, the results are really good. But for our input, we're using the facial landmarks of different people, which adds another layer of complexity because the algorithm's trying to create an image of one face from the facial geometry of another person. This was very much an artistic process, and we had to learn how to think of faces in terms of geometry, and found that we could sometimes stretch or squish a video of a speaker to get better results. Celebrities and social media influencers are now entangled in the discourse on public health and are sometimes given more authority than scientists or public health officials. Like the rumors they spread, social media influencers and the online popularity of celebrities are constructed through the neural network-based content recommendation algorithms used by online platforms. The shareable YouTube videos present a recognizable but glitchy reconstruction of the celebrities. The glitchy, digitally produced aesthetic of the videos keeps them from being classified as deepfakes and removed from online platforms, and helps viewers reflect on the constructed nature of celebrity, the authority of celebrities on issues of public health, and the validity of information shared on social media. So you can help us counter coronavirus misinformation by sharing these videos. You can go to goingviral.art and you can see them all there. And thank you.
Thank you, Derek and Jennifer. And I just got word that Azealia made it. Yay. So we have one more project called Attention. And this project is also in the exhibition. I'm gonna introduce Azealia. An Indonesian filmmaker, writer, and scholar, Azealia Mokransia, is a PhD candidate in media studies at University at Buffalo, SUNY, and a recipient of the 2017 Dictive Fulbright Scholarship. Her research investigates how the remediation of people living with HIV in media ecology contributes to the paradoxes of HIV advocacy in Indonesia. Her short films have been officially selected and screened in international festivals and academic conferences. Welcome, Azealia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today and for this opportunity. I'm actually also a FLEFF family, which happened back in 2019. I was one of the diversity scholars, so I went to Ithaca right after giving birth to my baby, actually, who's also featured in my film. So it was such a great experience. I remember great things about all the talks and all the connections that I made over there. And yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I'm Azalia Muhransha. I'm a PhD candidate in media study at the University at Buffalo, and I see a lot of people from Buffalo as well in this meeting. So that's really great.
We are infiltrated, Azealia.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to start with describing myself. I'm an Asian woman with shoulder-length black hair, wearing white gloves and golden necklace and makeup on my face. And I'm sitting down in front of a blank beige wall in my apartment in Buffalo, New York. And before I start, I would like to recognize that I speak from the land on which is the territory of the Seneca Nation, a member of the Haudenosaunee and Six Nation Confederacy. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and share ideas in this territory. And so I'm going to share my screen. I think it is this one. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So my film is called Attention, Attention, and I made it in May 2020 in our second month of self-quarantine due to COVID-19. I made it for a workshop in India that I attended, virtually to document and make sense of the pandemic. So in a way, making this film was half art making and half therapy for me. Where is it? Okay. So it all started with me realizing that the pandemic would go longer than many people expected at that time. And in December 2019, I actually went back to Indonesia to see my family and establish connection with the HIV communities in Indonesia as part of my dissertation research, with the hope of coming back in the summer of 2020 to conduct my ethnography research and filming my subjects there. The first day on campus, after I went back to the USA, I was the only one who wore a mask. And I remember everybody looking at me strangely as if I might be having COVID. And about a month after that, the campus was closed and everything went online. So as a mother of a toddler who then just turned 1 year old and an international student who was supposed to graduate in a year due to limited scholarship funding, this pandemic brought much uncertainty and made me worried about many things. This film reflects all of those worries, and as many questions bubble up in my mind, I reflected on what I have been going through by creating a journal entry in the hope of finding answers. And with the increasing number of Zoom meetings and recordings happening because of the physical distancing and flattening the curve, our computer and phone screens become new windows to connect us with the rest of the world. As most computers and phones have built-in cameras, I utilized the desktop as a medium to create my film and recorded my distracted stream of consciousness. And this film shows how I use different kinds of tools to convey my story, including the use of words, videos, pictures, music, different websites. Each of them infiltrates my life more and more each day as barriers of time zones and locations disappeared and we become more isolated in our shelters. It was and still is difficult for me to navigate between the two countries, the USA where I live and study, and Indonesia where my family and my dissertation subjects are. The last thing I want to note before I finish this brief talk is that I use this film as an avenue to explore the paradox of documentary format, which is the topic of my dissertation. Documentaries which are supposed to depict actual events are usually scripted, staged, performed, and edited to create appealing stories. I admit that I actually stage my film, as I do not in reality keep any journals as shown in the film. I wrote a script and rehearsed everything before the actual recording. However, the script itself is based on my actual experiences and the mediated performativity was genuine. And this is why I still categorize this film as a documentary, as it brings attention to entangled circumstances that infiltrated my daily life, which ultimately influenced me in making this film. I hope you enjoy watching the film as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you.
Thank you, Azealia. So I think, yes, that's it. Everybody had their turn. And we're going to open up for questions. And so I can get them on chat, I think, and we can, start discussing the works. So Dale and I had some questions as well. So I'm gonna, ask Dale to maybe start us off. Dale, you muted. Oh, not anymore.
Sorry, I'm just unmuting myself. And I realized that I forgot to show you, I'm just going to do this because I made it the last slide. This is how out of practice I am with Zoom, the last slide. So I'm going to leave this up just for a minute so everybody can see everybody's names and the little screen grabs for all the images. I wanted to just try to link everything together. What we found really interesting, Claudia and I, when we were going about selecting the pieces, is that what we found fascinating was that the pandemic had changed the way that people were thinking about things, but not so much so that it was a shock or something new. It just kind of made things go into focus in a little different way. And I think this comes out in a lot of the projects. As Leslie and Adriana were talking about the overlapping times and thinking about how time seems different now, and it makes us reflect upon how unnatural in a way time had been beforehand. With Stephanie, the visualization of the invisible, which again is something that we think about, particularly all of us in Zoom. We're in different time zones. We're seeing each other in the ice cube boxes, as Stephanie, you were calling it, or other things. And that has changed a little bit, and it's become completely naturalized to us. With Derek and Jennifer, looking at the information, disinformation, and then the, I like that little distinction, which I hadn't caught before, is that, there's glitches so that they don't become a deep fake and then get pulled off, because I actually didn't know that, which is really interesting to know, which again is, it's changing the way that we're thinking about things. Those technologies are emerging at the same time that we're trying to come up with technologies through virology to combat and epidemiology to combat the virus. And then Azealia, yours, what I thought was really interesting is the scene that we use for the screen glove when you were trying to locate your family's house. And then you'd remember that the Google van had gone by and you're like, maybe I'm in there someplace, to kind of reinsert myself in that place. But then also the other added element was the doing your research, because your research is so involved with your subjects. They're on the other side of the planet. You can't get to them. So this is what we were thinking about with all these projects, is to think about how these entanglements have kind of reconfigured themselves or re-entangled at this particular moment. In certain cases, destroying lives and life, in other cases offering insights to other ways about this, which is why we brought this all together. So I wanted to, one of the questions that we wanted, Claudia and I came up with to ask all the artists is, what do you think really kind of changed the most for you in terms of your thoughts about your art practice, your research during the pandemic? I mean, has it brought anything into sharper focus? Has it made you realize that your priorities maybe need to change a little bit? Has it reaffirmed your convictions? I'm going to end the screen share so we can see everybody together.
And anyone could respond.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just start with just offering kind of a short response to that. I'm sure I'll have more to say because I think there's a lot to unpack in that question. I think it's a really rich question for all of us to reflect on. But I know that, right as the pandemic was, or just before the pandemic was starting, Derek and I, because we'd been working digitally for so many years and we, we're in tenure track positions, we have like the ability to have a studio, and we really wanted to start making like more interactive installations. And then of course that completely shifted as soon as we went into the pandemic and we realized, okay, we're just going to go back into this kind of habitus of working online. And so that was a familiar space for us. So I don't know if that's exactly a change, but it definitely shifted our direction from where we thought we were going to be going.
I mean, I guess I'll say a major change was I moved continents during the pandemic. I moved to Amsterdam via Slovenia in a residency there to become a full-time artist. So really, the pandemic certainly solidified my desire to really focus on this full time and to make it the focus of my work and everything. And I think one thing that I'll say about the work during the pandemic, and I know this is not the same for everyone and for every artist and so forth, but certainly for myself and for some other artists that I know very well, the pandemic actually made our lives a lot busier in terms of the artwork because it meant that basically we're on Zoom presentations all the time where everyone wants things remotely. Every place that was asking us for work wanted a different video. So there was a lot of extra activity that needed to happen behind the scenes rather than just shipping your artwork to an exhibition. It involved a whole different sort of skill set. I have gotten very good at giving lecture performances now in OBS with all sorts of fancy YouTube streaming sorts of things. So there's a whole sort of new set of techniques that had to come with this in order to sort of fit the frame of our times.
I guess for me is, in the beginning, I guess there's like this illusion of like, oh, like I have more time for myself and my family. And like, I can actually attend any film festivals around the world. Like I can attend, different workshops, which is why I attended the one in India for this movie, right? And then like a year after that, which is like now, I just like, if I have one successful Zoom meeting a day, that's already, that's enough for me. But also, of course, it changed a lot of like my practice, especially because I am actually making my dissertation during this pandemic about an epidemic, right? So I'm writing about HIV during COVID. And a part of that is actually to do everything virtually. So I have to direct my film in Indonesia, maybe at 3 a.m. here in Buffalo because, the time difference and whatnot. But also at the same time, trying to, how should I say it? Trying to adapt with like all of this challenges in a way that I know that it's not the ideal kind of proposed project that I wanted it to be back in 2019, but now it's shaped itself into something new, and I think it is something better because I actually kind of like just embrace everything, and yeah, I mean, I think it's also like showing that this is the time that we are making this project, that we have this pandemic during making of these projects. And so it just shows in the projects itself. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, everything is completely different that before. And actually it's very funny because like 10 years ago, maybe 11, I started traveling, and everything started because of FLEFF, visiting Ithaca, giving a workshop there. And then I was immersed in this world traveling situation, many places every year. And suddenly everything stopped with the pandemic. I was there in one city, Guadalajara, not Mexico City, even like in the outside of the big city, like rethinking everything. But the most interesting part for me, like in my bioart practice, was this idea of the virus as some sort of, like a symbiotic external entity in the biology of the planet. And the role of viruses in programming biology over all this time, and also reprogramming the political and economical circumstances of the world at this point. So we were having a lot of conversations around what it means actually to be in a moment on the history of humanity when everything was put in a pause for the first time. And also because we were told this story that our time is money, that we cannot stop going to work, you know, like living in this hyper accelerated system. And in some point, it was like, it's okay if you stay there. So please stay at your home, don't move, the kids can be there. So it was a completely different narrative. So it made me think a lot on all these power games that are being played over us over the last 50 years. And I'm actually really concerned over these processes. And I'm trying to find out what my practice can do to change, to open a conversation around our economical, political circumstances at this point, and how are we going to change this narrative? Because we really need to change it. It's like something that is in front of us. We have the possibility right now. So I'm very concerned about these possibilities and how to activate it from the art perspective.
One thing, yeah, definitely like the issue of time, as everybody's mentioned. But one thing I think is interesting to point out, and it makes me think of like the desktop revolution, right? Everybody had access to these tools. And I think one thing that's challenging now for artists is so many people have access to the same tools and have been learning them. And it becomes a question of visibility. There are so many different things going on, and we are so exhausted that at times there's so many things that we want to see of other people that we know or people that we don't know, but we can barely make it to our own things and be present, and especially, as I'm sure a lot of us who are teaching. And so within this aspect of time and screen fatigue, also, you know, how do we make our voices stand out among all of, you know, the visuals that are going on and happening? And it kind of comes back to the video of the beauty spot, right? It had to be such a present icon so that it could become significant around the world. And also, you know, it happened very early on. But I think that that's one thing that really, really is a challenge, is that so many people, you know, that are artists are making videos, are using the same technologies. And how do you demarcate and distinguish, you know, one thing from another, which is an interesting problem, I think, and thing to question. So that's something that I've been thinking about in terms of my own work.
The revenge of Duchamp. All right, so we're gonna open up for questions and see if there are any questions out there from the audience, please. I have, let's see here. The chat is a little bit challenging. I have a question from Rikun Zhu. I'm curious about Stephanie Rothenberg's project, and I would like to know, if not in a virtual way, how would she like to exhibit the works, in a traditional gallery way or by other means?
Can I ask a little bit further? Do you mean the work that I showed in the exhibition, or just work in general?
Oh, here, let me just you.
The what?
That's my question. Yeah.
Just this project.
Oh, this project. Well, this project was always intended to just be a video, right? Like I made it for this video submission, but if I was going to do it in a physical space, I would make big fluffy Corona balls that were almost like piñatas that could just be going back and forth. And I would have all the video of all the video compilations of all of the coronavirus balls and any of these things just going. So it would be this kind of psychedelic space, kind of lounge. I think that's what I would do. And maybe I will do that now that you
Would we get sticks and then would we have the chance to hit them?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, you
Right.
have a show, Stephanie.
Right, okay, great.
Let's see here. Aaron Peterson is saying, I would love to see that gallery in person. So there you go, you have a fan. Any other questions? I don't see anything here. Let's see, there's one. From Julia Toka and Jacqueline Das. The mention of the glitch aesthetics in Going Viral had me wondering if other artists in the exhibition had any thoughts on the affordances of glitch, that is via legacy Brussels glitch feminism.
I know the question isn't actually for us, but that's an interesting reference that I was not familiar with. So I will be looking into that. Thank you, Julia and Jacqueline.
And I'll just say it's on the list of things to read, which right now, since I moved here, is not in physical form, but certainly my Kindle and PDF pile is quite large right now.
I confess, Julia, equally guilty. It's on my pile. Graduate students. Any other questions here? I'm going to ask Patty, because I was under the impression that we had something scheduled at 3, right, Patty? No? Okay, so can you tell us, we go until 3:30? I'm sorry about
Yeah,
that.
this session goes to 4:30 Eastern time.
Okay, so 3:30 for me. Okay, so any other questions? This is your chance. I had a question for everybody as I was talking with Dale, thinking about this notion of entanglements and infiltrations, all of which have to do with, with your works. And of course, I'm one of those people that feeds artists. So I was thinking, in that role, I was thinking, what do you think would be the best way? What is a way of moving forward with arts and culture within this time of, windows? Any thoughts on that? How can institutions and audiences help with that, with keeping arts alive, culture alive?
I mean, maybe I'll just say something a little bit about our particular contribution that I think was one way of this happening. So one of the reasons why I'm in Amsterdam is because the European Commission and European cities and nation states certainly fund the arts a lot more than in the US. And so for this particular project, the bigger biofiction consortium is across a whole number of 5 different art science organizations within Europe. And that was funding different types of traditional artist residencies, which is one thing that I had last year in Slovenia. But then the braiding friction, the thing that the Aerosonauts was part of, was an initiative that they started as a result to sort of help support and give time and money and in-kind support to artists. So it sort of came out of the necessity of doing this, right? So on the one hand, there's of course all these institutional things that certainly are present much more within certain parts of the world than others, and that should be something that should be rectified. So it's more evenly distributed for sure. But I think also, it's a time for building new types of communities and support structures. And, you know, there's this way that I've begun thinking about this very recently, that we're sort of in what I'm calling the transitioning times. And I say this as someone who's transitioning as a transgender woman, but also we're in very transitory times here for, I think, a very long time. And so as a result of that, I think it behooves us to have to make some of these things on our own, as difficult as that is. And that doesn't necessarily pay the bills. And so that's something else to sort of figure out how to do. But I think it's absolutely necessary in terms of the types of emotional / you know, friendship, new ways of kinship and relationships with others. You know, as Lizzie and I were talking about, certainly with the aerosol nuts, those Sunday while very sort of philosophically inclined and theoretically involved, were also really fun. And I think that was, you know, as important, maybe even more important at times, than sort of the actual material manifestation of it as an artwork.
Nice. So the relationship. Sorry, I was going to ask Leslie, but you can go, Stephanie.
Oh, I was just going to follow up on that. I mean, one of the things that I think was really incredibly inspiring are the relationships that have been formed through all of these different networks, you know, both artistic and pedagogical. Like I think about the Pirate Syllabus network and other artistic networks like the ones Adrienne has been talking about, but that you actually have been able to create like real relationships with people that you didn't know before virtually. And I do remember that a little bit because I get embarrassed to say a Second Lifer in Second Life. And that was a little bit of an ethnographic experiment, but it's, you know, really inspiring to know that that could still happen. You know, of course it's better in person, but to be able to develop these communities virtually. So definitely.
Thanks, Stephanie. Go ahead, Leslie.
Yeah, well, I think like this thing is super important. What Adriana was saying, the networks we create, the you know, the groups to help each other, but also I really agree with the role of the commission from part of the institutions. Like we're having a really hard time in Mexico to found the arts, like a super hard time, like the whole cultural programming for 3 years is completely broken down, it's not existing anymore. And in the case of my collective, we're being like super lucky of having a series of projects going on with Germany. So that's where it's been keeping us alive, like paying the bills and having us busy actually. But even in this case, I think it's like crucial to understand that the kind of art we are making is not, you know, just decorative, and it's not just art for some people. It's a kind of research. It's a way to understand reality, to open things and make deeper discussions. So I think we have to start moving just from this idea of art and science and understand that what we're doing is actually something that is making a more interesting, more human conversation on the subjects that science cannot understand and cannot talk about it, because they have a very specific methodology to understand all the circumstances we're living at this point. So it's important for the institutions to give a little bit more help for the artists to continue these conversations, because this moment is crucial. We're going to open something that is going to be running for the next 50 years. So we're sort of like starting the petit riche culture for the future. So if we don't have the proper support for this to happen, the building blocks of this are going to be completely shaky and, you know, unstable. So it's a good time to get together to put all the efforts in the same place and help each other to keep this alive.
Thank you, Leslie. Azealia?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with that. I really agree with that because I think, with all of the, the screen fatigue and whatnot, which is like very, very real, right? But it also, this time also gives us a chance to actually have alternative spaces online to come up with, conversations around difficult things, right? Because like during the crisis time, everybody feels this anxiety and everybody actually wants, it's kind of like bubbling up to the surface, right? And so people wants, this is the time that the crisis is the time when people start thinking about the difficulties and start like, moving forward with like talking about these things. I think it's very interesting in my own research, for example, like talking about HIV, right, and how the media is like portraying them and the representation of them, and which is also entangled with how the government actually like putting up front this like propaganda from the beginning of the discovery of HIV in Indonesia, but also making COVID, like seeing how COVID is like portrayed in the media now in Indonesia is kind of like the proxy, which is like the same, and crazy for me to see the comparison between the two, and to actually living it in this time and this moment. We can actually talk about these things. When people deny all of this like misinformations, but they can actually sense that something is wrong going on. So I think it's right. Yeah.
Thanks. Derek and Jennifer?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we actually started from a different place where when we started the project, we didn't expect there to be any exhibition opportunities or venues or anything like that. So we conceived of going viral as an intervention from the beginning, thinking that like, if there's no way to exhibit this, how do we get this in the hands of viewers or people? And I think we were using tactical media as like sort of like our template, like, but you couldn't go outside into the streets. So, how do you do something analogous to that? I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, and I think like we're very used to like a DIY approach to things, partially because the media arts are really not well supported in the US. And so it's kind of been like a constant struggle for us. Interestingly, we found a lot more support in other countries. It's been really interesting to see how different countries respond to the pandemic and where their investments are going. And of course, it's been terrible in the US. But our response to that has always just been like, we're going to bootstrap, we're just going to like try to organize things ourselves and put ourselves out there. And it's interesting that it has been easier to connect internationally. We've found that with like quite a few different groups where like they maybe weren't necessarily that international, but now they really are, because it's so much easier for them to organize these bigger events and get the word out. So that has been really rewarding. But I still think I'd be interested to see if anyone has experienced any like platforms that are better in terms of like different types of interactions that aren't just like a flat screen experience, because I still find the Zoom, like heads in a box it's not quite the same. You don't have like the serendipity of like running into people if you're at an exhibition or like going out and doing different things in the world. But that could be interesting to try to potentially, recreate, or I don't know. Yeah. Sort of facilitate some different interactions possibly.
Yeah, I think you need to be live for that, Jennifer. But I feel you. Okay, we have a question from Patty. What is the political urgency of the fanciful and the speculative and the imaginative in pandemic times, where media is so public health advocacy and informational? Oh, okay. So you're asking where is the space for the fanciful and the speculative and the imaginative, where media is focused on just informational models? And any one of the panelists can take that. Why would we want the fanciful and the speculative and the imaginative rather than just the straightforward linear informational.
I will jump into this one because I
Yes,
love
Leslie,
the
I was hoping.
speculative. Yes, because we have to imagine new possibilities. It's like a urgent exercise. Like we need to put other opportunities and options and possibilities out there so societies can grow in different directions and disattach themselves from the control system of media misinformation, because it's a political game. It's been for many years, and we have already too much knowledge that the way they're managing all these streams of information is to control, to inflict fear in people, and to put us in a position where they don't want us to have knowledge. So speculative tools, these imaginative tools, they create connections with people that make them ask questions, ask the proper questions, then go to research about these possibilities, and then we have a more engaged society, a more open conversations. And I think it's like it's so important for us to be doing this work at this moment.
Thank you, Leslie.
And
Anyone
sort of,
else?
and sort of on that point and building off of what we were doing with the aerosonauts as well, is to see speculation as not just for future focused as well, but also looking into history, right? Which is one of the things that we did a lot of research on with the aerosonauts group, going back and looking at, the dancing plague during the Black Plague, different ideas of demonology. How does this all sort of come together in our understandings of how the virus is affecting us as a body, as a social body, and so forth? And so really sort of taking, again, as time does not exist, possibly. So taking all these times, bringing them together, and then sort of mutating them to create new ways of existing forward. It's hard to talk about time if time does not exist, but that was one of the challenges that we were dealing with in our group as well.
So you mean the present and the past and the future do not matter?
Well, I don't want to say they don't matter, because obviously they have had massive impacts on bodies, right? It's the way that we have learned how to understand this, right? So it's not as if the events have not mattered, right? It's how do we understand the interrelationship of those events, and are there ways that we can build things now that then influence the future later, right? And how can our imaginaries for the future impact our present times?
All right. Okay, I have a specific question for Derek and Jennifer from Colleen Meadows. For going viral, how did you choose what public health experts to match with the different public figures? Were there specific factors that you looked at to choose the best?
Yeah, this was a really intensive process of watching like countless hours of these videos. And of course, we wanted the content from the medical expert to directly be related to what that particular celebrity, politician, influencer had said, so that it was, a correction of this misinformation. But we also found that sometimes that person might have their face turned in a particular way, or there might be, images like being juxtaposed over their face, and it wasn't just a talking head. And also that their facial landmarks were so different from the person between the medical expert and the celebrity, that it didn't work. So it was kind of a lot of different factors that went into it. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, we had a few different criteria. One, they had to be like either a medical professional or a journalist of some sort that was presenting vetted information. But yeah, then beyond that, it was initially I thought it'd be really interesting if the voices that came out of the speakers were radically different than what they would normally sound like. But it turns out that was not so easy to do in most cases, because it had more to do with like the shape of the speaker's face than anything else. Some things that we did that were kind of interesting to get to work was I found that we could take a video and splice it in half and move the eyes further up or further down, so that you're playing like the same video over top of itself, but like, cut at one point, so that the eyes would move a little bit differently, and that it works. It creates a more realistic likeliness of the speaker, but it also creates some interesting glitches at times where the face will sort of slide off of itself.
That just happened. You disappeared.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Stephanie, go ahead.
Well, when I first saw Patty's question, I looked at speculative as spectacle. And since we were talking about tactical media, and then I thought, oh, engaging the spectacle. And so I actually want to ask Jennifer and Derek about engaging the spectacle and the use of the spectacle in their piece, since they have such spectacular people in their piece.
It's interesting because we were definitely thinking about the problem of the celebrity and wanting to, get people to start thinking about, why does the celebrity have any kind of authority, period, but especially on like a medical issue. And what is it, what is the attraction of the celebrity to people, which is, it's a type of, as a power dynamic that they want to be like that, and they want to think like them. So, and I think that ties back to the glitch as well. Like, we really wanted it to seem constructed and draw attention to the fact that it's an artifact as opposed to something that's seamless, where you might just focus on, I don't know, like ignoring the fact that it's created through this system. There's also the algorithmic dimension to it. And we were thinking a lot about like surveillance capitalism, and like the business model that's actually driving the algorithms. People are giving up all of this data and they're being micro-targeted. They're seeing these things that once we started looking for these, misinformation videos, we started finding more of that than we did of like typical news. So this ends up being like a rabbit hole as well. So that's another dimension, like maybe a new dimension to the spectacle is this algorithmic dimension.
Yeah, it actually started with us looking at the content recommendation algorithms that were spreading conspiracy theories. And like Jennifer is saying, it's funny, the more we started to look at first, it was hard to find conspiracy theories. You kept getting like, if you want correct information, go to the CDC. But, after you do it for a few hours, pretty soon they just come at you, and we didn't even have to look for them. We just found more and more conspiracies as we were looking for stuff. But yeah, I think the one of the things we really wanted to communicate was I don't know, like just how absurd it is to think, well, maybe I shouldn't get vaccinated. MIA said I shouldn't get vaccinated, so that's that seems reasonable, right? And the I guess the glitchy aesthetic was sort of part of that. It's like, how do we show that this is a fabrication? It's, I don't know, sort of done to us rather than good information that you sought out.
Great. Okay. And I think we have one more question that it's good as far as trying to close down a little bit. We're getting there. It's from Stephanie Tokas, and it says, it's so great to see these incredible works that have come from such a tough time. Did these projects open up new research questions about the pandemic that you want to explore, or are your next projects going to be, and then the chat, where is it? I hate this thing. Ta-da! Okay. Are you there, Stephanie Tokas? Because I can't find, or
Claudia,
are the next going to be less? What's that? Can you see it?
Less focused on the virus. Yeah, less
focused on virus. Okay, because if I click on it, it jumps to the next one. Okay, so did your projects open up new research questions about the pandemic that you want to explore? And anyone can go. Adriana, you can go. I know you have a new project.
Well, okay, so I wouldn't say that it is going to open up new research avenues on the pandemic per se. I think what we did was important for the time, for that moment. You know, May, June, July 2020. It's a great sort of moment of that time. But certainly the topics that we were exploring there are things that I'm taking up in my own work these days, thinking through different things about demons and quantum computing and other stuff like that. All of those things, and looking at the histories of medicine, because I'm in a project right now about arts and medicine. So those things are certainly influencing my current work. Yeah, that's all I can really say about that right now.
It's okay. Leslie, what are you working on?
Okay. Yes.
You
We're
have to tell us. This is major.
we're working on this project around you know, the idea of what is actually defined as life by using a series of algorithmic ecosystems to generate virtual organisms and try to recreate these co-evolutionary biosymbiotic system that Lynn Margulis proposed on the symbiotic genesis of life, where we're trying to put this into the virtual world with the help of some artificial intelligence and gang systems and, you know, base agent models and all the possible models that can give us some insights of different ways of perceive life. And we are questioning what is this idea of life in general, and how can life be outside this planet and in other contexts. And it's a collaboration actually with the SETI Institute and Ars Electronica. We are super excited of working with these scientists. It's like
can you tell us what
very-
SETI is for the people that don't know?
everyone knows what is SETI,
Oh
right?
yeah, of course. You
The
would
Center
think
for
so.
Extraterrestrial Life Research. They used to have this amazing antenna on, I think was Puerto Rico. They just it just like out of the working from some time now. And yeah, there is a lot of astrobiologists asking these questions there. They've been trying to, you know, decodify some signals coming from space. And there is also a lot of research on extremophiles in the way they develop life. And we're just trying to, you know, come with some scientists there and develop this codex virtualis that is heavily inspired on the Serafinianus Codex of Life. So that's where we're working on right now. And yes, it was something that is not precisely because of the pandemic, but the pandemic gave us, you know, the ideas to finish developing this work. And now it's on the go.
Nice. Stephanie, you want to go quickly? Tell us what.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I just want to point out the beauty spot was really fun to work on because it wasn't a major project. So I could actually have fun with it. Whereas sometimes I feel like in your big research projects, we just torture ourselves and we can't get it right. So my big torturous research project now is called Aphrodisiac in the Machine. And it's an environmental sci-fi that speculates on if these cyborg oysters could cure climate change. So these bioengineered oysters secrete a special juice, and they're located around the world in these futuristic aquaculture farms. And they secrete a special juice that turns aphrodisia into a state of aquadesia. And that juice in the water is piped into municipal water sources. It's publicly accessible. So what would happen in a very interesting interspecies entanglement, right, of becoming oyster, if that could possibly cure climate change? So yes, that is the big project I'm tackling now that takes many forms.
Sounds very illegal, Stephanie. We have 2 minutes or 1 minute left. Derek and Jennifer. And
Sure,
then,
we are working on something that's very Dada, I would say, at this moment. It is a facial recognition system that is searching for I guess, members of the film, of the cast for Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. And it's looking for Boogaloo boys in protests and in the gallery space of the exhibition that we have coming up. And I see in the chat, someone says, I love that movie. It's a really bizarre movie if you haven't seen it. But the Boogaloo, well, it's going to be all false positives because, of course, the corpus is not real, but it's based on brute forcing that law enforcement agencies actually do. They have been known to use celebrities. Like there was an example of someone who the criminal was said to have looked like Woody Harrelson. So they put pictures of Woody Harrelson into the facial recognition software and tried to use that to find this person. So as absurd as it seems, it's actually based in the ways that they use facial recognition technology.
okay. Okay, thank you. It's 3:30, and there was a quick question about the selection for me and Dale. How do we select the artists? So for this exhibition, actually, most of the works that you're going to be seeing, we actually solicited ourselves. There were some there were some people that sent us works, and please go and look at them. But most of them, we kept it very small and very targeted because we really wanted to kind of explore these ideas, of the virus and so on. So Dale, do you want to give us your last word?
Sure, but Azalea, we didn't get to hear what you will be working on. How are you going to finish your dissertation? I'm just curious.
That's true.
Just a quick note. Yeah, so the dissertation film right now, kind of changed, with the challenges that I already talked about before. But the film is I already have the first cut of it, and it changed title from like positive impacts, like this traditional documentary, talking about the representations of HIV into like asking forward a question of how to make a film about HIV. And actually it's taking a more hybrid form of like putting forward, the process of mediation itself, and how like my crew right now actually expanded to 3 different places in Indonesia. So not just focusing on the capital city of Jakarta, interact with my subjects and how they actually direct these subjects into like representing themselves and their stories. And there's like this whole kind of like self, what do you call it? Curating and self-censoring process going on as well. So I think the virus, the pandemic actually opens up those kind of how should I say it, challenges, and so it actually makes me embrace all of those process of mediation and highlight them into my film.
That's really interesting. I was just talking a couple weeks ago with a young, used to be in a band, studied architecture, used to be in a band, a rock band, and now is a media producer and created a production company between London and Beirut. And he was talking about sending cameras to actors and sending them instructions like, put it over here, and then I want you to act towards it, and then assembling a narrative. In this case, they made a television series. So that's interesting to think about how you're going to do this with ethnographic research as well. I just want to kind of wrap it up into to bring what we've been thinking about. Each year FLEFF has these themes, and we try to, for the online exhibit, we try to weave it where it's thinking about the typical environmentalist in the real world, the material world. And then we also want to add in the virtual world into it, because that's the way that this exists. So what I was thinking is that with the virus, with the pandemic, people have thought about adapting, and people like, do we adapt to it? Like, do we adapt to it? do we make it the new normal? Do we say, no, the normal is sick, it's toxic, it needs to be destroyed? And we've seen the way that it's changed. It's either sped up our work so that we're completely exhausted because we don't have anything to do other than sit at the screen and do work all day, or it's completely eliminated our work where we have like no source of income at all together. So I'm just, I think it's interesting to think of infiltration as perhaps a different model rather than disruption. And disruption, you remember we used to use that as a model before all the big IT companies caught on to it. And now it's like a market term. So sometimes when I watch the English language news here, I get CNN International, which is, the hyper-capitalist news channel. And they're so excited about a disruption for the stock market because then the stock market will recover and get better in its own way. So I think disruption, we can't use that anymore, but maybe we could use infiltration, and that could be the way that we can kind of infiltrate these systems and get them to change. I don't know how to go about doing it because you can't really work change inside the system. It doesn't
Well,
work that way,
by making entanglements,
Yeah.
Bill.
by making what?
By making entanglements.
Yeah, exposing the
It
entanglement.
seems. Well, I think also creating them, right?
Oh yeah, we could actually be socially engineering them or bioengineering them in different ways. So anyway, I think it's an interesting thing to think about, and we've been really inspired by these projects. And actually, we solicited a couple of them, but a lot of them came through. But they're people that we've worked with before, and I just want to introduce Jody Zellin, who's here, who we didn't think was going to be here. I don't know if she wants to come on and say hello, but she's the other artist, and her project you can also look at, which is Ghost City Avenue S, if I'm remembering the correct title. And you can go through that one, which is interesting, and read about it a little bit that she's written about it, and we've written about it, how she's added on to it through the pandemic for another project she was working on.
We'll need to wrap it up now because we're a little bit over our time. I want to thank Dale and Claudia for a really stimulating opening session. And from all of us at FLEFF, I want to thank all the participating artists, Stephanie Rothenberg, Adriana Newf, Derek and Jennifer, Leslie, Azalea, and Jody for what is a really extraordinary exhibition. One thing we've planned for now is about a 20-minute or so after party. And we promised it would be fun and would not feature people talking at you, but you speaking. So I'm running the after party. So we're going to put you in breakout rooms, and they're going to be small with 3 or 4 people. And you have an assignment, and it's very simple. You're going to be in a breakout room, random, and we'd like you to say who you are and what you do. And then we'd like everybody to share just one new thought you had from our 90 minutes together. Just one new thought that you could share with everybody. So we'll see you out on the other side, and you'll have about 10 minutes.
Oh, fuck.
I'm not sure if we should join a room or not.
Yeah, go join a room.
Okay.
Go join a room. Everybody should join a room. I just can't because I have to keep track of time. So.
Such a great both critique and tool.
Hi, Erin. Do I need to get you into a room?
Hi, no, I was just in a room. They all introduced themselves, but they were two Ithaca college students and they had to leave.
Okay, we can put you in another room.
Cool.
Hey, Annie.
Hey, Patty, how's it going?
I'm sorry, I closed it out before you got to play the credits.
Oh,
It
that's
was
okay. I
my-
played them anyway, but I don't think anybody saw them.
I'm sorry, that was my bad. I completely forgot.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, they went over and
Yes, they sure did.
I was texting her like crazy. And I texted her to said, don't read the bio. And
I know. She got a little bit chatty with folks, which was good, you know.
she had a little bit chatty. Yeah, it was better when it was chatty, I think.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, is to keep it less formal that way. But great
Yeah.
guests, though. They're super, those people.
Are they super?
Yeah.
Wow, they were so interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I've looked at all the work, but they really brought it to life for me.
No, that makes a big difference. They did a really good job with that. I was impressed.
You were?
Yeah, at how well it worked. And then not too
Yeah.
much fumfering with the sharing and, you know.
No, they were really pros and they had, I'm really glad no one showed videos. I'm glad they all did screen grabs.
Right.
Of course, they're artists, so they want it to look good, right? So I think they know the video is not going to roll.
Right.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think they did a really nice job.
Hi.
Hey, Leslie.
Sorry, I have to run because I have to catch another meeting.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
It was
Thank you so much.
wonderful.
That was
So interesting.
wonderful. Thank you.
I love FLEFF. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you. Thanks for coming back and saying hello.
Bye bye.
Yeah, it was nice how the artists shared their history with FLEFF. It would be great if the moderators could build that in too, because that adds to the familiar, you know, feel of the whole thing.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I think Dale and Claudia were a little distracted, though. They weren't like zeroed in.
Well, it takes a while, you know, to calm into it and stuff. But Yulia is fantastic. Oh my God, she is the queen of this with
She
all
knows-
those links.
She knows how to do it. I'm telling you, she's
She
been
looked
doing
great.
it.
She had the best image of anyone practically.
She's been doing it for almost a year for Helen and mine's project. And that she just knows how to do it. She's like really good. She knows when you need a question. Yeah, it's just like fantastic. But I feel bad after all that work on the closing, I fucked up and forgot.
Oh,
I gotta
listen.
make a note to myself to remember that.
Right. And you know, I think Claudia's difficulty, I think, was that she was trying to read the chat and moderate. It's too hard to do both. Somebody should be feeding them, the moderators, you know, one of us or you or somebody.
I was directing her to the questions.
Yeah, but she wasn't handling it.
You know what? I don't think she didn't handle it well.
No. I mean, she could have used Dale to feed her if she, you know, something should have, there should be a backup. And we should ask the moderator, say, when it comes time for the Q&A, would you like one of us to read them out? Or would you feel comfortable yourself going through it? She was not comfortable doing it.
She was not.
But I think she would have welcomed help if we had offered it, you know, before.
Yeah, I think we should have really,
Marisa Fox, do we know her?
No. It was someone who was maybe on and then got booted off.
And he placed that only to the winner, President Biden. And he also managed to pick up among Asian Americans, among African American men.
Just put Marisa in a room.
Oh, good.
So, you know, sometimes with the students, their Wi-Fi goes in and out.
Yeah.
So when you see them, sometimes when people come back in late, it's not that they're late, it's that their Wi-Fi went out.
Yeah, there's always glitchy.
Yeah.
Days. I thought that was a good start, though.
It was a good start. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
The ideas were amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephanie Rothenberg, I mean, fuck, she makes a video about the coronavirus. I did not realize the coronavirus image was an artist's rendition.
Oh, come on.
I knew it was enhanced, but I didn't, when she put up those slides.
Yeah, the
it
actual
showed
slide. Yeah.
The actual slide and then this like artsy thing. Just really.
Yeah, that's really classic scientific visualization, actually. You know, first of all, whenever you see something biological that's symmetrical, you know for a fact it's artist did it. Because nothing is that perfect looking. I mean, it's spherical, but not that spherical.
Yeah, well, the students who stayed got to hang out with some of the artists in those rooms. So
nice. How many rooms did you make?
I was doing it based on the number. I initially had 10 and then I took it down to 9. So it'd be like 3 people.
Yeah, because people were leaving and stuff. So
well, the students in my class are supposed to be in class until 6:30. So they all left. Every single one of the students in my class. Oh, no, one of them's still here. One of them's still here.
Well, 2 of them, Aaron and Stephanie, are, you know, the officially.
Yeah, they're here. Yeah.
And then Kanell was there too. The other one, Colleen, rather.
Kaylin.
Kaylin.
It's just a strange spelling. I keep thinking her name is Quayline, but it's just like Kaylin, like as though it was Kayla.
Yeah, like with a K. Oh God, Patty, I want to get outside.
I know.
What's your plan? You keep this going for a little while?
No, there's only a minute left. I think when they come back, we'll just hang out for 5 minutes and then shut it down.
Who's still there. Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe our team can do a little bit of a lessons learned.
Okay.
Yeah, the students who were signed on didn't come for the 15-minute prep.
No, they did not.
That's something to pay attention to.
They did not. And only one of them had her background up.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about how to do the after party. And when I saw that almost 55 people had signed up, I thought, okay, you know, I better just do it as breakout rooms.
Yeah, I think if we ever have more than 10.
Just put them in the rooms. It's easier.
Rooms. Yeah, you're good at that.
Yeah, while they were talking, I had to write on a card, like what would be, people need a directive in the room.
Oh, yes. No,
you can't just say go and hang out because we're mixing all different kinds of people. You know,
it makes it easier for big.
I'm going to ask FLEFF team to hang out for lessons learned. Hey, welcome back, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back. I hope those breakout rooms were fun.
Okay, so Leslie and Adriana had to go do something else. They just texted me, so you know. And they were thanking you, everybody.
Went to bed.
They went to bed. That's very specific, Patty. They went to bed.
Yeah, it's like 1 in the morning there, 1:30 in the morning, I think. No.
Yeah, they were thanking everybody for the comments on the chat and everything else. So that's great.
Oh, great.
I was in the wrong view, and I only realized I thought that only one person was in there with me. So I'm really apologizing to Stephen. It's like I didn't even see you. I was not monopolizing who I thought was my only partner, but
Did you figure out that you were in there with more people?
only at the last second for Stephen to be able to go hi, and that was the only thing. So apologies. Oh my God.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Maybe we'll take like 2 or 3 minutes before we wrap it up to ask people to just share what happened in your breakout room. Anyone want to pop something in? We're going to just, and what we suggest for this part is turn all your mics off mute, right? Take everything off mute so
Turn
people
them
can
on.
just turn on your mic. Yes, turn on your mic. That's why we have producers.
Okay, I can start us off. Derek and Jennifer, we had Stephanie and me and a high schooler. So, and he was really interested in your project because he said this is a huge thing now in high school, that, you know, the librarians are putting tutorials together in order to help the students to learn about what is information and misinformation. And that, you know, that's a thing that they're really interested in, you know, and these celebrity culture ideas that really resonated. So your audience is in the high schools.
That's excellent. I think also our, you know, the undergrad students that we're working with at Northeastern are just so into misinformation. I have them doing a tactical media project right now. And that was the big conversation that came out in the online discussion for the students was, you know, misinformation and deep fakes and social media. And then when I showed them my project, they're like, oh my gosh, they had all these questions about it. And it was exactly where they went when they were thinking about like, how would you, you know, what kinds of issues are coming up right now. That's
yeah,
really
I asked them whether surveillance was one. And it's like, you know, no misinformation. Like,
yeah, but
okay.
it's interesting because it is, you know, still very much tied in with surveillance capitalism. So I think, you know, I keep trying to steer my students to think about it that way, that like, you know,
Yep, that they're entangled, right? Because it was like, yeah, surveillance.
Yeah, you can't really separate the two.
Anyone else want to share what went on in the breakout rooms? I don't get to go to any of them because I have to be the wizard at the controls with Annie.
Right.
So, anyone else?
One thing that we were talking about that I think could be interesting in the group that Phil brought up was, you know, what did we think about the format of, you know, how did it feel? Because, you know, there's going to be these events going on all week. And we were saying it was super comfortable and the questions were really interesting. We all felt like we could approach them, I think, from our own angles, so that the questions were really good. But I think there's also this kind of familiarity that we have with each other that made it feel really intimate, unlike a lot of like the, you know, artist talks that we've been doing. So I don't know how you could recreate that exactly, but
well, we would have to meet in person and then
that's the thing that, yeah, we ended on that we feel like we're missing out on. We wish that we were there and having a beer with everyone. And
yeah. FLEFF's actually running for 3 weeks. Yeah, we used to, for 24 years, we were a 1 week, 23 years, we were a 1 week festival, but partly one thing you learn in the new world where we had to learn 3 or 4 new different platforms to put it on. And we had to make this decision. Literally, we made it about 4 days after Ithaca College shut down last year.
Oh, wow.
We knew we had to go, only because, full disclosure, my husband's a public health professor. So he was like, there's no way, you know, there's no way. And so we made the decision really early, and we weren't like one of those festivals that was saying, we're going to try for embodied, but then we'll fall back. We just made the decision because we knew we had a lot to learn. And so one thing we just realized is your scalability and sustainability shifts completely online, and that you have to allow more time. You have to allow more time. So everything we did, we've tripled. That's our just, for artists here, we have like an algorithm, triple everything, right? So we cut the programming in half. We usually run about 120 events. Now we're doing about 60. So we cut that in half and we tripled everything. So 1 week to 3 weeks. And then every event we're doing is 3 times as long. So some of Stephanie and others have been to the festival, and an artist masterclass, Stephanie, we would do 30 minutes, 45. So we've done them where there aren't too many events with just one person, and we put more people in, but this was 90 minutes. So we found unique time. And so what we said is triple the time, because sort of what we're interested in is dialogue and connection. And that's what we kept hearing from people. People want to connect. And actually, we've heard from everyone we invited to this year's FLEFF. I wish we were in a bar, but then everybody still wants to come. And so we're trying to honor that people want to connect. So that's why we're being really strict about time. And then we're kind of deciding, I think, day by day, are we going to do our pop-up parties? And we want to do it so it's small, so people can meet each other. Because one thing that we also learned is you got people from all over the world coming, and you got people from all different walks of life and all different ages, right? We go from high school to retired. And so you want to have ways for people to connect, to share ideas. And where I want to share, because a lot of us working are academics, Annie and Phil are professional producers, and they went and analyzed webinars and meetings. So everyone's tired of webinars because it just feels like some authoritarian regime took over the airspace. So we are only using the webinar format at 2 events, and they're events that require translation. And so it has to be a little more focused. But I do want to give a shout out here because Rikan Zhu is with us. Rikan, he's a FLEFF returnee. We did a retrospective of his documentaries 2 years ago. He's with Fan Hall Films, and he will be speaking this weekend at one of our talkbacks with Zhao Dayong, the Chinese dissident filmmaker. And those will be extraordinary talkbacks because we're doing them with the University of Hong Kong, and they will be bilingual in Mandarin and in English. So, we've been trying to work to analyze what can we do here? How can we get people together? And one thing we found is we would not have the budget to bring everybody in from this exhibition, right? And so the idea that we can do Entangled Infiltrations, and we get people from all over coming in to talk about this. And in all the years we've been doing new media art, we've maybe been able to bring one person to come in from the exhibition. We've never, ever been able to have everybody there. So it's exciting.
What's also nice about the meeting format is we get to see you, and we hope to see some of you again in other events. It'll be interesting as the 3 weeks goes by that we can see each other more than once. These are not one-offs. It's more like the festival where you see people again and again and again. So we look forward to that.
And I sound like the biggest proponent of alcohol, but at the end when we break into these breakout rooms or whatever we do, I'm going to go grab a beer. But the idea is to make it more Gemütlichkeit, of having it be friends in a room.
Friends in a room, connecting, and especially there are students with us even now. And we would like the students from all of our institutions, right? I mean, anyone can go. Almost everything we're doing is free except for 17 films. So anyone can bring their students at any time. And what we'd like to do is to invite early career young people into these worlds we inhabit, and make it accessible for them, because this is really going to be their future. And you know, we would like our students at Ithaca College or your, you know, whatever institution anyone is at, Rochester or Buffalo, to just, you know, join us anytime, because you know, one of my concerns is that these are incredible worlds you all live in, and we want to bring people in and be as inviting as possible to bring people in. And, you know, I'm really taken, like, so many of our intern staff and students are hanging out with us here. It's just fantastic. And I, you know, I feel like calling on you so we get some voices that are like under 30 into here. So
Oh, Stephen's got to talk, I'm sure. Yeah.
Stephen, I know you want to say something.
I do too.
Well, I find this whole format here to just be really cool. And I think it's really amazing how we have this whole young generation now that is seeking out just virtual festivals, regardless of where they are. So I've really enjoyed this whole process so far. That's what I have to say on it.
Great.
Great. Anyone else? How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, please.
Oh, wait, Aaron
Aaron.
has a real hand up. Love it.
Sorry. Okay, I was going to go off of Stephen because this came up in our little breakout room before, is that we also loved this platform, especially because it is so much more intimate than regular other international film festivals. And just the discussions we're able to have together so loosely and very comfortably is just kind of soothing to have, especially around the topics that we are talking about.
How about you, Stephanie Tokas? Because there are two Stephanies here and you're both from Buffalo. How about that?
I absolutely agree with everything that Stephen and Aaron said, but I just think that this is just so valuable to just hear all of these like insights from all these different artists from around the world. It's just such a valuable experience. It's just like irreplaceable. And it's so nice that it's like accessible to just like everyone, no matter where you are. So it's just, again, so valuable. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so everyone who's older like us, we're all saying, why can't we be together? And everyone who's younger than us is saying, this is great. I get to meet all the people on the screen.
But how about if your cats are in the video, they should be labeled
Yes,
too. You got to put the
yes.
name down there. Who is that?
Yeah, let's hear from Kaylin. And so, I mean, we have some
I know,
here,
but I love
you
the
know.
cat. Thank you.
Yeah, Kaylin, did you want to share anything with us?
Well, I guess I just thought all of this was really just like really cool. I think that especially for new media, doing it on Zoom is like kind of perfect. And I also really liked doing the breakout rooms just now. It like totally changed the atmosphere and made it a lot easier to connect with everyone else here.
That is good to know. That's why we have our producers and associate producers here. I know they're going to have us change the format as we move forward. So that, I anticipate what they're going to tell us to do.
Just don't listen to them. Ignore.
Yeah. Mary, Turner, and Logan, are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, I just
Logan.
have really bad internet. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I have bad internet, so I can't turn on my camera.
Okay, why don't we have Mary go and then Logan? Do you mind waiting, Logan? Because okay.
Sorry, Logan. Logan and I were in a room together and we were discussing the topic of like the Ice Cube tray, the classic, like we're all like on the Zoom screen. And I'm a live events minor, so we're actually doing presentations on different event technology at the moment. And I showed my group there's these new platforms are doing this sort of like 3D virtual space that you can walk around in, and you're like a blank screen and you can like click to connect with somebody, and then you like sit down together like in this space, and it's like your cameras, but it's like the actual like experience of walking around an event and everything. But regardless, I appreciate all online platforms for like being able to collect people together in this space. But I think like all of the different explorations of how to approach that is really interesting.
That's funny, you know, that Second Life, what Stephanie was talking about.
Yes, it's Second Life for like later.
Yep.
This is our
Yes.
second virtual life.
Our
We're
second
doing it
virtual
again.
life, yeah.
Right.
Logan, I'm sorry we cut you off, Logan.
No worries. So yeah, I do think the whole virtual platform idea for the festival this year is actually working surprisingly well. And it's really nice, again, like having the chat box there, and like anytime you send links, like we can just click on it immediately and like look into things further. Whereas like if it was in person, you could hand out like pamphlets and stuff like that, but like you couldn't just immediately click on links and access everything.
Yeah, that's
So
a
I
good,
think it's unanimous, Patty. I think for the future exhibitions, new media exhibitions, we just keep this, and then the rest can be
yeah.
physical and have can have beer, can have both.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're I want to give a shout out to our associate producers, Yulia Tulki and Jacqueline Das,
Mhm.
because they are chat wranglers, a term Annie gave them. And so we have producers on the chat, and
They are intimidating. They are sending things to me.
anything that anyone is saying or talking about, from the moderators to the artists, they're putting in links all the time. So you can make a reference to something. They're intimidatingly fast.
I know. It's
at it. And yeah, it's something you don't have when you're in person. And I think a lot of people really like it. I think of it as like live bibliography. And for the artists, we put in all your extended bios in the chat as well. So it just speeds things up, right? People can read and do it. I went to Sundance FilmX this year for all the festivals, and there were 800 people there. And there was not one festival that's going to go back, even after the whole world is vaccinated, to 100% embodied. Not one anywhere in the world. And the reason was exactly actually what the students described. More accessibility for people new to the festival world, a lot less intimidating. Everyone is having their budgets cut because of shock doctrine, pandemic austerity, and this lets you bring people from everywhere in. That for people with disabilities, these interfaces are much, much more accessible. You can do closed captioning for people who are mobility impaired. They don't have to go anywhere. And what we've also discovered is that people want, when they watch, say, the films that we're programming or your projects on our website, asynchronous has totally obliterated synchronous. So what it is, your festival, you're becoming like your own TV broadcast station. That's like an underground international station. And your platform, we're using Eventive, becomes like your own streaming service that you've curated, and you've kept it really, really tight. But I was very surprised, but the big festivals have realized, like Toronto, New York, and Rotterdam, they tripled and quadrupled their audience. And this is what funders want to see. And when I was at FilmX, they pointed out something I truly feel embarrassed I never thought of, but the young students here have said, is they said festivals tend to be people out of college in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. That's who goes to festivals, and they go to see people and to make deals. And what they pointed out is that young people don't go to festivals. One guy said they don't need to. They're in college. They're at a festival like all the time. And that older people tend to not go. But when you go to the virtual environment, you actually change the festival demographic. And you get many more young people, like this high school student who was here. You get, I was looking and I saw many, many more students that I knew, not just professors sitting here. And I also saw a lot of retirees here. right, on this. So that idea that you can expand access is really great. I know
Patty, even,
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that even a girl in elementary school is coming to our tuba presentation because she started the French horn and has become excited about it. And I convinced her to look at what a PhD professor in tuba teaches, and she's going to come and she's really excited. So even elementary school kids.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, we have had people writing to us as we've gone out with our publicity, homeschoolers, parents at home teaching on Zoom. They're like, can I bring my kid? They want something they're not running. Professors saying, can I bring my class from some other institution? So, what I see is I've been waiting my entire career for the media industries to be disrupted and destroyed, and they are now. And so it's like a totally new frontier to figure out. And there are no best practices. Everybody's figuring it out. And, I know Raccoon has, he's Fan Hall Films. And a lot of the festivals in China, where he's from, have been shut down by the government. Right? There is no, so, I think we sometimes forget around the world, there is often no embodied space for a festival. That's a global North privilege that we have to really remember, and often a white privilege. So Raccoon has done some incredible interviews where he said, Chinese radical film is online, and Fan Hall's been doing these amazing projects with filmmakers and rolling the films. Since a lot of them are in Mandarin, I haven't been able to go, but I'm very impressed. It's just this constant sense of, bring this community there, because you can't do this in China. Raccoon, did you want to say something about that? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Patty. Yeah, sure. I think sometimes, like the pandemic, it changed a lot of things also for the film field. And for me, yeah, it is on the other hand, something interesting is happening for Chinese independent cinema. Like last year, we organized some kind of film series online by showing films by streaming them. And then we have quite a lot of discussion by Zoom or on other platform. It made me feel that it's like in a free way for promoting independent cinema, especially under the political situation of China, and where it's very difficult to organize independent film screens. Or of course, it's also a very difficult situation for independent film festival in China. As Patty mentioned, most of the film festival in China were cracked down by the government, so we had to find other ways. So I think now is a great choice for booking the films online. In this way, is that we have more audience, we have more discussion, and we are feeling good about this, actually. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I just have to give a shout out to Raccoon, because he ran a festival that was shut down by the government, and all of his films are very radical interventionists against the Chinese government, and the films he's been promoting are, so, it's a kind of space to really explore those dissonant voices in China and have access to them. And we're doing a Chinese film every week. It's a retrospective of Zhao Dayong film, and Raccoon and Zhao Dayong will be there. And, it's just really incredible that we have scholars of Chinese independent film who are very famous from Hong Kong joining us. And the first thing they told us, Raccoon, you'll love this, is we better do a check that it's not blocked in Hong Kong. And so we have removed all geo-blocking on everything. And that was like a political decision for us, but we had to check this. And they checked from university computers and private home computers because they just don't trust that things won't be blocked. And it worked. As you know, we can't go public and say use a VPN because we're in an institution. But that would be the other way. But we were amazed that we were able to, those Chinese films went through completely, fine in Hong Kong. They're not trying to do it from China, but from Hong Kong, they were going through. So it's I think it's a very exciting time. And, we were talking about if we were doing this on campus, we would have to follow the class schedule. We would only have 75 minutes. We couldn't have any hangout time, right? If we're in a theater doing a talk back, the festival model is it's 10 minutes in a theater. We do 20 and we think we're being really generous, right? We do 20 to 25. Now our talkbacks are 75 on all the films. So we feel the dialogue issue and the sense of sharing ideas in these informal spaces is just really, I think it's very, very important. And it's something we could not do embodied. You're constrained by schedules. And, the problem in the festival world and in the museum and art world is the worst place you can be in a pandemic is inside with a large group of people.
Not in museums, not in museums. There's research done about that. Put masks on, go to the museum.
It's great to go to museums where you have all the room in the world.
Right,
exactly. And you don't have little kids in front of you.
Exactly. Go to the museum.
Museums. It's a 20, and depending on the state, it's either a 20 or 25% limit. And they're clicking off how many people go in. So you can't have unlimited access. And some people are thinking this is all, with museums, arts, cinema.
Stay away from the Mona Lisa is all I can say.
We're looking at a minimum of another year. What I've been reading is maybe end of 2022. A lot of the big festivals, they're all into drive-ins and outdoor screenings, right? As a way to get around it. So it's, I think what happens for programmers is you don't want to take a risk and plan and then have to change because
no, but I'm just saying, there's actually research done about that, about going to museums is it a high risk or a low risk activity?
Right.
And it seems to be